How and when did the mysterious mound builders migrate to America?
Welcome, friends. This is Dane Rome, your announcer for today's Last Days Beacon program. Thanks for listening, and thanks for joining us again. And just a reminder that these programs are supported by your gifts to this ministry. If you'd like to contribute to this ongoing faith ministry, which deals with Bible prophecy and current events, simply go to our website to contribute. Our website address is www.swpm.us. You'll find a donate link on the homepage. The website address again is www.swpm.us. Thank you for your prayers and support for this faith ministry. On today's program, Dr. Snitker interviews L.A. Marzulli regarding his latest brand new film entitled The Mysterious Moundbuilders. In this DVD, L.A. and his team explore some of the thousands of mysterious mounds scattered throughout the Midwestern United States to the Gulf of Mexico. These mounds, some gigantic in size, contain clues to the hidden history of America. The truth regarding the builders of these mounds and their contents have been carefully hidden by the scientific establishment and our government. What are they hiding, and why? This will be the subject of today's intriguing discussion. So let's join Dr. Snitker and L.A. Marzulli as they discuss the mysterious mound builders.
Thank you, Dane, for that introduction, and welcome, friends, to another Southwest Prophecy Ministries podcast. Today we are going to conclude a series of interviews with L.A. Marzulli. L.A. has for many years been on the trail of the Nephilim. This trail has most recently taken him to the mysterious mounds that dot the landscape throughout the Midwestern United States. The fruit of this endeavor is a brand new film entitled The Mysterious Moundbuilders. We're going to be talking about this research again today. L.A., welcome back to our show.
Great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Last week we got into some very interesting issues pertaining to the purpose of these mounds, and one of those that we concluded with last week had to do with the worship, i.e. the human sacrifices that these Nephilim were involved in. And that's really quite gruesome, but of course it's characteristic of the Dark One's endeavors that it usually results in human sacrifice. And we talked last week about abortion and just the terrible scourge of abortion in modern times. That really is just another indication that our society and our culture, even American culture, is far from God. But we're going to move back into the discussion of the mounds today. My first question, L.A., is there any archaeological evidence that these mounds are burial places of the Nephilim?
Well, this is where it gets really interesting. And when you discuss this with modern-day archaeologists, they laugh at you. They smirk. And when someone does that to me, that pushes buttons because they're being condescending. We've got numerous newspaper articles from the 20th century, early part of the 20th century, that discusses the exhumation of skeletons between, on the short side, 7 feet up to 12 feet, in some places 15 feet. My work out on Catalina, which is why this is so pivotal, and this is featured in Moundbuilders 1, we see that skeleton that was in a photograph taken by a primitive archaeologist by the name of Ralph Glidden. We see Glidden standing in a recently excavated grave, leaning on a shovel. In front of him is a large skeleton in situ, and the skull is enormous. And we had 3 different researchers look at this, and based on Glidden's height of 5'8" and the proximity of the skeleton, we figured we had 3 different guys do this using different disciplines, and there was no collusion between any of them. We put the skeleton at just under 9 feet. Now, that's a matter of historical record at this point. That went viral. People looked at that and have used that to bolster the idea that there were giants. And what was incredible, we show this in the film, when Richard Shaw and Richard's the director of the Watchers series, and that's where this was first aired, along with my book, On the Trail of the Nephilim, which is now the overarching title of this new film series. But Rick and I went back to the museum on Catalina about 4 to 6 months after my book was published, and we walked in, and there's the picture, which I discovered, by the way, in the archives and had analyzed. It was in a plastic sleeve in an envelope in a museum box tucked away in the vault, never to see the light of day. No one cared about that photograph because they weren't looking for giants, but I was. And I published that photograph. Well, we went back to the museum, and lo and behold, the photograph has been cropped. It's blown up, but the giant is cropped out of the picture completely. Unbelievable. Now, the museum, the Catalina Island Museum, since then, has done the right thing, and they put the picture, my picture that I discovered, back up in the new museum, but there's nothing at all about the actual height of this being, this entity, at 9 feet. So that's proof positive that there's at least one 9-footer. And based on some of the other artifacts that we found, there were 6 fingers, elongated skulls, all from that cache of records by Ralph Glidden on Catalina Island Museum. So giants existed.
Now let me ask this before we leave the Catalina Island skeleton. Could you tell me which Smithsonian museum? Certainly this skeleton is on display in the Museum of Natural History in Washington, D.C., and I've been there, but I just haven't seen that particular skeleton. Could you tell me what happened to it? We
don't know. It vanished. All we have is a picture, David. That's part of the problem. According to Glidden's records, a lot of the bones were carted up and were put on a boat, and there was a really bad storm, and the boat sank in the Channel Islands. Circa 1919, 1921, somewhere in that time frame. And we know that Glidden was employed by the Hay Museum. The Hay was later gobbled up by the Smithsonian. So we have no idea where these things went. But there's too many anecdotal stories that come across my desk, and I know eventually we're going to find one, and we're going to be able to do DNA testing on it. That's my hope. And I know that there are people that may actually have stuff like that their grandfather dug up in their barn. Seriously. Right. So it's around, and it's going to come to the surface at some point.
Now, as I recall, you mentioned in the early part of your film, as I recall, you interviewed a person who, as a young man, participated in I guess you could say, a non-professional exhumation at a mound in Florida, as I recall. Could you tell us about that?
This was incredible. And when I get things like this, I get all excited because he had a 16 millimeter film, or 8 millimeter film, 8 millimeter film that his mom had shot when they were out there in the 50s, 56, 57. It was a large shell midden. The midden is like a trash pile. It was also used as a burial in some of these areas. And they were out there digging in the midden and got a lot of artifacts. And so he sent me the film, the original film, which I showed segments of it, and I took it to a place in Hollywood, had it digitized, and went through very meticulously looking for what I was hoping would be a shot of the graveyard where they exhumed 10-footers, according to this particular person. They exhumed 10-footers. He was telling me at the time he was a boy, and the thigh bone came up to his waist. The femur came up to his waist. So we're looking at a really big guy here. And his mother didn't think that was interesting, go figure. So that part's not on film. What we do show is the exhumation of one elongated skull in the burial mounds. So the archaeologist that was finally deployed to the site, I think he took like 56 skeletons out, whatever the number is. And that was all a matter of public record. But he wouldn't dig where the giants were. He wasn't interested. So it was like an almost too good to be true, and it was too good to be true in one sense. But we have his word, and we get a lot of that from people that when they were kids back in the 50s, and people were digging into the mounds and they saw giant bones. So of course that's completely dismissed by the archaeologists because there can never be such things as the giants. So anyway.
So would you hypothesize that some of these mounds, like the Circle Mound and the big Cahokia Mound outside of St. Louis, may actually contain the skeletons of these Nephilim?
Well, that's why we're on the trail. That's why we're on the trail. We know that in some of the mounds, yes, very large skeletons were found, like Miamisburg Mound, for instance, or Grave Creek Mound. Allegedly, there were large skeletons found there. But all that has been redacted and managed by the powers that be. So it's hard to get to the truth, which is why we're looking for a mound in Ohio where we can dig on private property that's never been excavated before. And we know that there are burial mounds. They didn't get them all. And it begs the question, why hasn't anyone dug them up? It's amazing. I'll talk to farmers, oh yeah, that mound's been here ever since my family owned the farm, and we've never dug into it. But yeah, it's in the back 20 or whatever. So we'll go back there and look, and sure, there's a mound.
Yeah.
Can we dig in it? No. But we could. In Ohio, you get a permit. It's on private property.
Right.
We would bring our team. We have 2 archaeologists, anthropologists, forensic field investigators, videographers. I mean, we're all set to go. So we just need a mound.
So I would assume that the mounds that are on federal property, such as the Cahokia Mound, for example, you can't do any exhuming or any digging in those mounds.
Right, not a thing.
Okay, so you would have to locate a mound that's not on federal property, that's on private property, maybe in somebody's backwoods, and do basically a private excavation on those sites.
You would do a private excavation, and if you found human remains, you would call the coroner. If it was ancient, then he would bring in the estate archaeologist. At that point is where we would bring in Chief Joseph Riverwind and argue that these are not Native American. We would take DNA. We would fight to control the site. We have our own archaeologists here. We'll take it because we don't trust you because you'll hide the evidence from the people.
Oh, absolutely. So would I be correct to say that may be a something that you would envision for the future if such a site became available?
David, we've got mounds that people have told us about. There's a couple we're looking at now. There's an ongoing dig that we've looked at. Yeah, I mean, if anyone is in Ohio and has a mound on their property, you can shoot me an email at la@lamarzulli.net, la@lamarzulli.net. It will only work in Ohio because the other states, for whatever reason, have different laws and you cannot dig into a mound. But in Ohio, if it's on your property, you can. And again, if you find human remains, you call the coroner, and we would proceed legally, but we would get DNA. Absolutely. And like the Peruvian DNA, mitochondria, which comes from the mother's side, the maternal side of the equation, it shows us specifically that there was an origin in the Middle East and in Europe. That rewrites history. Now, if the academics don't want to see that, and they poo-poo it, and they cry contamination, nevertheless, the skulls have genetic deformities, which are not the result of cranial deformation, cranial headboarding. So all this my team put together. And I just want to give a shout out to Rick Woodward, our anthropologist, who was the one who discovered the difference in the foramen magnum. Mando Gonzalez, one of our archaeologists who did the DNA testing along with myself down in Peru. You have Michael Alday, who wrote for the little book that we did also. And he was the one that really went overboard, saying that this is genetic. It is not the result of cranial deformation. And then our chiropractor, who is very well aware of the foramen magnum and the shape and the way it connects. And so he weighed in on the book also and gave Dr. Malcolm Warren a wonderful synopsis of his work in our little book, The DNA Results. So, that's one team, and I'd like to thank our sponsors who donated a considerable amount of money and allowed us to do all this, because all of this, to get to this point, cost about $200,000.
Oh, absolutely. A lot of travel, a lot of experts consulted along the way, and of course the finished product to me is just masterful. The music, the drone features, first class production. Final question, L.A., tell us about part 2 of the Moundbuilders series.
Well, part 2 picks up where part 1 left off, only in greater detail. What I mean by that, we really get into the mathematics of the mounds. We get into the surveying of the mounds. In particular, we really focus on the Newark Circle Mound and the Newark Octagon Mound, all part of what is known as the Newark Earthworks in Newark, Ohio. And we have people weigh in, including Chief Joseph Riverwind, who's First Nation people. He's a peace chief. And Chief Joseph basically says that Native Americans did not have trigonometry. Now, people can argue that, but this is from a First Nation peace chief. And then we've got academics that weigh in, stating that the octagon mound is an irregular octagon. It's not 8 equal sides, but the only way to look at that and to see it is from the air. To give you an idea how big the octagon mound is, you could take the Great Pyramid of Egypt and place it inside the octagon. That's how big this thing is. When I stood in it last year and filmed, I could barely see the other side. I had no idea what it was I was looking at. It's only when you're in the air, high above it, can you ascertain. I flew my drone 800 feet in the air, and I still couldn't get it all. So to give you an idea just how big this thing really is.
Wow. Amazing. So there's some really amazing footage that's going to be coming out in this second part of your series then.
I think so, David. All this is, and that's why it's a series on a trail of a Nephilim. And if you haven't gotten these things or gotten episode 1, eventually it'll be live streamed or streamed, be able to buy it on Vimeo or rent it on Vimeo. But I think a lot of people are going to want this as a collection, and getting a DVD, you can pass that around and you've got it as long as you have a DVD player. So pretty exciting.
Absolutely. Yeah, I've already loaned my personal copy to our announcer, Dane. He was here recently, and we were talking about the contents of it. And he said when he was a student at Cedarville University in Ohio, he was out hunting in a kind of a wooded area, and he ran across some what he called Indian burial mounds. And I said, those are not Indian burial mounds. Those are Nephilim mounds. And so he absolutely insisted that he borrow a copy of the film. It's just, these things are here. And if you just buy into the party line, you have no idea as to the significance of these mounds. And it really is eye-opening. And so I'm looking forward to the release of your second film in the series. When do you anticipate it being ready for release?
I'm going to guess probably around March sometime.
Oh, that'll be great. That'll be great.
Yeah.
Well, for sure, we're going to have you back as we discuss and promote the second film. And I think we're out of time for today. But L.A., thank you for joining us. This has been a great series of discussions. And I appreciate your time and sharing this information with us.
Thank you. Really appreciate you having me on.
Friends, I am sure that you will want to obtain a copy of LA's brand new DVD. It's entitled The Mysterious Moundbuilders. This film, I believe, will pull back the curtain as to the hidden history of America. So please listen as our announcer Dane Rome shares how you may obtain your copy of The Mysterious Moundbuilders.
Thank you, Dr. Snitker. Friends, in conjunction with today's podcast, we're offering a brand new DVD by L.A. Marzulli entitled The Mysterious Moundbuilders. This groundbreaking film deals with an American culture over 2 millennia ago that erected thousands of mounds throughout the Midwestern United States to the Gulf of Mexico. This investigative film leads to a radically different discovery than the official explanation offered by our government. This beautifully produced film shows you some of these amazing mounds, including the mysterious Serpent Mound. Many experts in the fields of history and archaeology are interviewed as well. Now, you may obtain a copy of this Mysterious Moundbuilders DVD for a gift of $19.99 plus shipping. To obtain your copy, go to our website, www.swpm.us, and then click on the bookstore link. Type in The Mysterious Moundbuilders in the search bar. Again, The Mysterious Moundbuilders DVD is available for your gift of $19.99 plus shipping. Our website address again is www.swpm.us. Well, please join us for next week's Last Days Beacon program, brought to you by Southwest Prophecy Ministries. Until then, this is your announcer, Dane Rome. Thanks for listening.